Back in 2001, like a whole 20 years ago, I was young and stupid and did something really terrible. At that time, I had been with my husband, he was my boyfriend back then, for 5 years. We both grew up in the same small town, hung out with the same group of friends since we were kids, and fell in love during high school. We've been together ever since, but after college, I started feeling like my relationship was holding me back and not letting me be my true self. My best friend Julia totally agreed with me on that. We would go out clubbing together, leaving our boyfriends at home. We didn't do anything too crazy, but there was definitely a thrill in knowing that other guys were checking us out. You know what they say, though? Don't mess with fire. The more we partied, the more Julia would get the urge to cheat. Eventually, she started making out with other guys at the clubs, and I'm really ashamed to admit it, but for a few nights, I did the same thing, dancing with guys and kissing them. I put a stop to all that after a few incidents. I was disgusted with myself, with her, with those strangers I was kissing, and most of all, it felt terrible about cheating on the love of my life. I told her that I couldn't keep hanging out with her if she was going to keep cheating. Thankfully, she understood and stopped too. But of course, even with all my moral outrage, I didn't have the guts to confess what I had done, so we kept it as our little secret. Fast forward 20 years. Well, I ended up marrying that boyfriend, and now he's my husband. We've got 4 kids, ages 18, 17, 14, and 14. In these past 2 decades, my best friend has pretty much dropped out of the dating scene altogether. She's got her own successful business, which she inherited from her family, and she devotes her life to running it. Her social life pretty much revolves around hanging out with me, my husband, and sometimes babysitting the kids. Well, it turns out that she's gotten so chummy with my husband that one night in February of this year, she had too much to drink and ended up spilling the beans about our past cheating incidents. She conveniently left out the fact that I only kissed 4 different guys. Just to clarify, she doesn't remember the specifics, but she does remember that we both cheated for almost a whole year. To make things even worse, she revealed all of this while my oldest son was upstairs and he overheard everything. I was away for the weekend with our other 3 kids, visiting my parents. My poor husband had to comfort our son while trying to understand what Julia was telling him. Little did I know that the last time my husband kissed me would be the night before I left. When I returned home the next day, my husband sat me down and directly asked me if I ever cheated on him. I could see it in his eyes that he already knew the truth. I admitted to it, and he remained surprisingly calm, which scared me. I was worried about his well-being. Usually he's proud and charismatic, but on that day, he appeared peaceful and distant, as if he was detached from our relationship and from me. He told me that he wants to have a DNA test done on all of our children, and I agreed without hesitation, because they are his kids. He's the only man I've ever been close with. We had to wait for a week to get the test results, and during that time, my son wanted nothing to do with me. When we received the results, I thought it would be a fresh start to rebuild the trust between us. I had all the energy and determination to invest in our marriage and prove to my man that I deserved his time and love. But on the day the results arrived, he dropped a bombshell. He wanted a divorce. Since March of this year, we have been living separately. He bought a condo in the downtown area, where my oldest 2 kids spend all their time. The youngest twins split their time between me and him. He refuses to consider marital counseling. In our jurisdiction, there is a 6-month waiting period before a divorce can be finalized, and that period expired in October. So as of October 23rd, I'm a 42-year-old divorced woman with 4 kids. 2 of them hate me, and the others see me as the cause of the upheaval in their lives. I completely cut Julia out of my life. I know it's not her fault. I made the choice to lie, and I have to face the consequences. But somehow, I associate all the ruin in my life with her. It doesn't really make sense, but I blame her. Just last weekend, one of my younger kids mentioned that Julia has been staying over at my husband's condo. I'm filled with jealousy, hatred towards her, and anguish over this whole situation. I desperately want to win him back. This isn't how our lives were supposed to end. We've worked so damn hard to build our home, and he shouldn't be sharing it with her while I'm left out in the cold. Even the thought of calling him my ex makes me want to disappear. After a while, I did something I never thought I'd do. I unblocked Julia and reached out to her. We decided to meet up for coffee at my mom's house when it was empty. We talked for hours, but I can't say it felt like old times. There was this tension in my stomach that wouldn't go away. I realized I still have a lot of resentment towards her for what she did. I can't fully let my guard down with her like I used to, and I need to accept that. Anyway, let me fill you in on what she told me. I asked her why she told my husband about my cheating. Turns out it was just a stupid mistake she made while being drunk. There was no real reason behind it. She doesn't even remember it happening, but she does recall my oldest son being distant with her the next morning. My husband later explained to her what she had revealed. What was her attitude towards my husband after she confessed? Well, my husband actually cut her off shortly after I did. You see, a few days after the whole incident, she sent him a text trying to convince him that she was drunk and confused when she spilled the truth. But he had already confronted me by that point, so he knew she was telling the truth. He needed some distance from her because he associated her with all the lies I had told. How did she manage to reconnect with him after he told her to stay away? Well, he didn't actually block her. He just made it clear that he didn't want her to contact him anymore. She promised to respect his wishes and stay away from him and the kids. But after 3 months, she reached out to him again. She explained that she had been getting help for her issues with alcohol and wanted to apologize for all the harm she had caused. They had a conversation, and from then on, they stayed in touch. Why is she staying over at his place? Well, she's been feeling lonely at home during the winter because of her past issues with drinking. She wanted some company, so she stays in the guest bedroom. They're not drinking together or anything like that. She even apologized for the confusion it caused my twin daughters. I let myself feel a glimmer of hope in this situation. They're not in a relationship. This whole thing wasn't some big plan for her to take him away from me. There's still a chance for us. But I needed to confirm it for myself. Did they ever have closeness? Yeah, after the divorce was finalized, they hooked up a few times just to blow off some steam. She kept assuring me that I shouldn't worry because they weren't trying to start a relationship. There's too much resentment and baggage between them for it to work, and she doesn't think she's his type. And there you have it. I couldn't hold back the tears when she confessed this. We both cried and she apologized. I must have told her 1,000 times that I hate her. I truly do hate her. I hate her more than I ever thought possible. She knows how much I love him. She knows how much I need him. Yet she still manages to disrupt everything, no matter how much it hurts me. I kicked her out after that. I haven't blocked her again. She wants to be back in my life. But there's no way in hell I want to see her if she's sleeping with the man I love. I know some women can swallow their pride and handle it, but I can't. So that's where I stand right now. At least they're not in love or rushing into marriage. I try to convince myself that he's only using her as a way to fill the void in his heart. I try to convince myself that what they're doing is not meaningful closeness, but just a physical reaction to stress and circumstances. However, her comment about not being his type lingers in my mind. I wish I had asked her if she's dating someone now, or if he has his eyes on someone else. I wish I had prepared notes on the things I wanted to learn and express instead of going into the conversation unprepared. My emotions got the best of me, and now I find myself crying until I'm physically exhausted. All this meeting has done is humble me at the thought of him and her making love. I can't let this continue. I need to win him back before he falls in love with someone else. With the new information I've discovered, does anyone have advice on what steps I should take? Update. I need to strategize to do something different, something that could bring about a change in our lives. I'm aware that I made a grave mistake, but I also realize I didn't want it to ruin the rest of my life. I was in my early 20s back then, and now in my 40s, I'm a different person. I believe in forgiveness and second chances. I believe that my kids deserve a happy, loving family, not this chaos. My heart aches for my 2 elder kids who've distanced themselves from me. I can see the disappointment and anger in their eyes. I started seeking professional help, going for therapy sessions, working on my self-improvement. I needed to make amends. I needed to prove that I've changed, that I'm not the woman I was 20 years ago. My therapist helped me understand that it was necessary for me to forgive myself first, to move on from the past and focus on my future. I thought of reaching out to my ex-husband, but he was adamant. He had made it clear that he doesn't want to have anything to do with me. The only contact we had was through the lawyers. Every time I saw his name on the legal documents, my heart sank. I yearned to hear his voice, to see his face, to touch him, but all I got was a cold, distant signature on a piece of paper. One day I heard from a mutual friend that he had moved in with a new woman. My heart dropped. The jealousy was consuming me. I felt a burning rage inside me. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. I saw her once. She was stunning. With her beautiful long hair and radiant skin, she was indeed a sight to behold. I couldn't help but compare myself to her. I thought to myself I should be in her place with my kids, with my husband. It was a bitter pill to swallow. In the end, the divorce was finalized, and I was left with a big loan and no child support. I was on my own, struggling to make ends meet. He changed his numbers, made it impossible for me to reach him. It felt as if he had erased me from his life. Every night, I found myself crying, regretting every single mistake I had made. I wished I could turn back time. I wished I could undo it all. It was a long time ago. It was only a couple of kisses. There was never any closeness. Did I really deserve such a harsh outcome? I asked myself that question every single day. Was it that easy for him to move on, to forget all the years we had together, to forget all the happy moments, all the love, all the time we spent together? Was his heart just made of stone, or did he just decide to forget? It was like he became this mean, uncaring guy who looked down on me, even though I had been with him for over 20 years. Second story. Just so you know, I'm currently 35 years old, and this story I'm about to tell you happened back in 2014 when I was 26. My ex-fiancée, whom I'll refer to as Barb, was 25 at the time. We actually met in college and had been dating for 3 years before deciding to get engaged. By the 4th year, we had even set a wedding date. Both of our families weren't financially well off, and Barb was pursuing her graduate studies. So, the financial responsibility for the wedding fell on me. It ended up costing a total of $20,000, which I managed to pay in full just 4 days before the wedding. Before I dive into the chaotic evening I'm about to share, let me give you a rundown of our typical relationship drama in our mid-20s. We had our fair share of issues like poor communication, partying too much on weekends, and silly fights over insignificant things. But aside from that, we had a solid relationship and spent a lot of time together navigating life after college and planning our future. Now, back to the wedding disaster. As I mentioned earlier, I had already paid the wedding and reception venue, and their policy stated that the payment was non-refundable. We had over 120 guests confirmed, including several from out of state. The tuxedos and bridesmaid dresses were all sorted and paid for, and everything seemed to be falling into place. But little did we know, a storm of unfortunate events was about to unfold, and I won't keep you waiting any longer. The incident happened on a Friday night in our new apartment, which we had moved into a few weeks earlier. We decided to invite around 12 friends over to our place for some pre-drinks before heading out to the local bars. Among our friends was Ricky, my buddy, whom I've known since kindergarten. Ricky and Barb had gotten along really well over the past 3 years, and he was definitely one of her favorite pals of mine. It's always great when your significant other gets along with your friends. We started the night at a nearby hookah lounge where you could bring your own booze. By the time we left there, we had already finished a 5th of Jameson whiskey and a 30-pack of Yuengling beer, and everyone was feeling the buzz. The next 3 hours were spent hopping between 2 or 3 bars. And as the night went on, our entire group became a drunken, rowdy mess. When the bars closed, most people went home, except for myself, Barb, Ricky, and another couple who joined us for a nightcap at our apartment. Once we were back at our place, the other couple didn't stay for long and left after about 20 minutes. So it was just me, Barb, and freaking Ricky. Earlier in the night at the hookah bar, I noticed Barb being more focused on her phone than usual, and I also noticed Ricky checking his phone whenever Barb would lock the screen. I had a slight suspicion, but didn't think much of it. Why would I worry about them planning something shady just 2 days before I was supposed to marry Barb? Back at the apartment, I was relatively sober and realized all the alcohol had been finished. I thought about picking up a couple of six-packs from a local store that stays open until 3 a.m. Barb and Ricky were clearly intoxicated, but I didn't have any reason to suspect that anything sketchy would happen if I left for just 20 minutes. As I sat in my car, ready to leave my apartment complex, a feeling of unease washed over me, and it completely freaked me out. So I called my best friend, and he agreed to come with me on the beer run and then back to the apartment. We grabbed some Bud Heavies and made our way home, walking up to the sliding glass door that led to the living room where we had a sectional sofa on the right. We opened the door and took a couple of steps inside. And there it was, my ex-fiancé and Ricky, both completely without clothes, passionately engaged in some serious tonsil hockey. The crazy part was that neither of them seemed to notice that my buddy and I were standing just 10 feet away, witnessing their sloppy and drunken antics. After about 7-10 seconds of trying to process what I was seeing, I lost it. I dropped the booze, forcefully pushed her off Ricky, who was still lying there without clothes, and delivered 2 solid punches to Ricky's eye and cheek. The look of terror on his face was priceless. At one point, after he regained consciousness, he tried to stumble towards me, his face swollen like the Elephant Man, and attempted to drunkenly apologize by wrapping his arm around my shoulders. That didn't go well, either, because I ended up giving him a good slap, throwing him to the ground and pinning him down for a few minutes with my knee on his temple area, kind of like a dirty cop. I hoped that humiliating him like that would make Ricky think twice before getting involved with someone else's partner. Just to give you some context, I'm a 6, tall, 220-pound guy who has been playing hockey my whole life, while Ricky is a 5 or 6 inches tall, 140-pound runner. Right after I unleashed my fist on him, Ricky started snoring, who knew that was even possible, and ended up sleeping for at least 5 minutes, while I was freaking out about the whole situation. Without thinking, I kept calling her parents like 10 times until they finally woke up, and I insisted that they come immediately to pick up their cheating daughter. Luckily, their house was just a 5-minute drive away, so they arrived shortly after. When they walked in, they found me going off on Barb about her disgusting and unforgivable choice, Ricky lounging on the couch, and my buddy trying to mediate the situation. The first thing I made clear to everyone was that the wedding was completely off. I demanded the engagement ring back and made it clear that I'd rather lose $20K than spend the rest of my life with a damn cheater. Her parents spent the next 20 minutes trying to convince me to reconsider and even defended Barb's actions, asking why I couldn't forgive her, or if it was too late to cancel the wedding. My buddy who walked in on them with me actually stepped up and got defensive when he heard both parents trying to talk me out of my decision. It meant a lot to me that he stood up for me without hesitation. Meanwhile, Ricky woke up and his right side of the face was swollen like a grapefruit, and his left eye was completely closed. Kicking Ricky out of the apartment was a challenge because he was too drunk to drive, so I called his brother, who was about 20 minutes away. During that time, I unleashed my anger on Barb, Ricky, and her parents. Surprisingly, despite being extremely furious, I managed to stay composed enough to articulate my thoughts clearly. Usually, when I've been this upset before, my mind felt scattered and I struggled to put my thoughts into coherent statements. But not this time. As Ricky's brother arrived to pick him up and Barb's parents took her home, I systematically dismantled any objections, opinions, or pleas for reconsideration voiced by everyone in the room. It felt really damn satisfying. The only warning sign I noticed happened about 6 months before the wedding, and looking back, I should have walked away instead of waiting. We were all at the bars, sitting around a big table, drinking pitchers and chatting. Barb and Ricky were sitting next to each other on the opposite side of the table, but I didn't think much of it. I was hanging out with other friends. Throughout the night, I noticed some suspicious things, like them isolating themselves from the group conversation, not paying any attention to me, and whispering to each other at close distance. After the bars closed, I drove Barb back to her parents' house and said goodnight, but I had this nagging feeling that something was off. So I went to Wawa, grabbed some food, and then returned to the apartment complex to play detective. I dropped her off around 2:15 a.m., and at around 3:05 a.m., I saw the unmistakable 2004 Audi S4 with electric blue paint and black wheels heading towards her apartment. Ricky parks his car in front while I'm about 100 feet away on his left, feeling my heart racing. A minute later, Barb comes out wearing a new outfit and happily walks towards his car. That's when I quickly put my car in reverse, turned on my high beams, and sped directly towards Ricky's driver's side door to make my presence known. Obviously, they were both shocked and didn't know how to react. Their excuse was that they just needed someone to talk to, and they assured me there was nothing to worry about. Well, that didn't sit well with me. I told Ricky to go back to his mom's basement, and I decided to spend the night at Barb's place to make sure he wouldn't show up again. It took a few weeks to make amends with Ricky, but they both kept reassuring me repeatedly that I had nothing to worry about moving forward. Well, it turns out I did. Here's my only advice for you. Muster up the strength to speak up if you start feeling uneasy about something your partner is up to. If you let every little thing slide and your gut tells you they might be cheating, they'll exploit that lack of accountability. Honestly, it's much better to be open and direct when communicating with your significant other than to hold back your concerns about their questionable behavior. You deserve better, and if you ever uncover infidelity or something similar, you'll be grateful that you confronted your partner and took the right course of action instead of finding out 5 years down the line. I won't sugarcoat it. The months that followed weren't a walk in the park, and things didn't magically fall into place for me. Just 2 months later, the pharmaceutical company I worked for decided to lay off everyone in my department. On top of that, I had accumulated thousands of dollars in credit card debt to cover the wedding expenses. I was haunted by unemployment for a grueling 5 months, and to make matters worse, I was diagnosed with major depression. Life was a complete mess for a few years, and I wouldn't wish that on anyone. I didn't receive any money from her family to help with the wedding expenses, but I didn't really expect anything since they're not well off. The engagement ring was a tough one because even though I paid around $1,700 for it a year ago, Barb managed to beat it up pretty bad during that time. It didn't look good at all, with the smaller diamond on the left cracked and scratches on the white gold. I took it to several jewelers to get it appraised, and the best offer I got was $100. I decided to accept it and use the money to buy tickets to see my favorite rock band in Philly. Totally worth it. These days, I'm much happier. I had a fantastic year of cognitive behavioral therapy, along with taking Lexapro 20 mg, which I still take just in case. My life circumstances have improved significantly, so it's been a bumpy ride, but I'm cruising along. About a year later, I started dating someone else, and we were together for the next 4 years. But it turned out she was emotionally and verbally offensive, and she was not well liked by my friends and family. I ended that relationship last June, and since then, I haven't felt any desire to jump back into the dating scene, going through 8 years with 2 women who caused me so much exhaustion. However, now that I'm 35, things have finally started to settle down, and I've decided to embrace the single life happily. Regarding her current situation, well, she cheated on the 2 boyfriends right after we broke up. One of them was just a week before they were supposed to move to California. We're in Pennsylvania. I'm aware that she's dating someone at the moment, but considering her track record of cheating on the last 5 boyfriends, it's pretty clear that she's a serial cheater. It's unfortunate for him.